King attached to them so that people can be confused, because I have been reading the comments online and people are like, who is this Dr. King? Because you want them to believe that somehow she espouses.
I am a bit emotional. I'm going to watch what I say. But it seems as though you have suggested that I am a bastard to the King family legacy. I am legitimately the daughter of Reverend Alfred Daniel Williams King and Dr. Naomi Ruth Barber King. We are a family who loves God, and I love you. God bless you.
A House Judiciary Committee hearing on the Southern Poverty Law Center took an unexpected turn when Representative Jasmine Crockett criticized Republicans for inviting Dr. Alveda King to testify instead of other members of the King family. What began as a debate about race, political rhetoric, and the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. ultimately led to an emotional response from Dr. King herself. Watch the exchange first, then we'll break down the arguments, the political tensions behind them, and why the hearing ended on such a personal note.
You know what, I hate that we have spent this much time, on SPLC, and we've not addressed the elephant in the room, the literal elephant in the room. The vast majority of the people on that side of the aisle, and for those of you that are at home, let me tell you, when I say that side of the aisle, I'm talking about the Republicans, the ones that brought this hearing, and again, you've heard that this is not the first hearing, but the vast majority of them are white men. White men are lecturing people of color because the vast majority, actually, any semblance of diversity comes from this side of the aisle. You want to tell people of color who is fighting for who? People of color do not feel comfortable or welcomed within your party. That's why you have to parade someone who has the name Dr. King attached to them so that people can be confused, because I have been reading the comments online and people are like, who is this Dr. King? Because you want them to believe that somehow she espouses who Dr. King was, yet you've yet to have MLK the third come in here. You've yet to have Dr. Bernice King, the ones that were actually raised by Dr. King, the ones that actually probably understand the teachings of Dr. King. And I just want to be clear, because I want to talk to y'all about what the Dr. King had to say about racism, so that y'all don't get it twisted and don't get it confused just because you see the name sitting in this room. Our nation was born in genocide when it embraced the doctrine that the original American, the Indian, was an inferior race. That was from his 1963 book, Why We Can't Wait. He also said, in the final analysis, racism is evil because its ultimate logic is genocide. If one says that I am not good enough to live next door to him, or to have a good, decent job, or to go to school with him merely because of my race, he is saying consciously or unconsciously that I do not deserve to exist. This was from his 1967 speech, The Other America. So just to be clear, y'all don't seem like y'all even understand what a hate organization is. So I went to Google to help you out. A hate group is an organized group whose beliefs, practices, and primary purpose are centered on advocating malice, hostility, or violence towards people based on their immutable characteristics such as race, religion, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, or disability. So I know some of y'all are, caping for Charlie Kirk, because I done heard y'all talk about his organization over and over and over. So I'm not finna play with anybody who's gonna play with my time, so I'm going directly to Miss McCord. Professor, let me put some respect on your name. All right, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. Does that sound like a hater or not?
That sounds like a racial stereotype.
Okay, sounds good to me. We made a huge mistake when we passed the Civil Rights Act in the mid-1960s.
That sounds like someone who still adheres to racist views.
Okay. America has freedom of religion, of course, but we should be frank. Large, dedicated Islamic areas are a threat to America.
That is someone who can't accept that America is a multiracial, multi-religious place.
Okay, these all just happen to be comments from the fearless leader of Turning Point USA, so I could see where SPLC was going. I also think that it's so interesting that right now, just for those sitting at home, you may not know that oversight is not having any hearings right now because the Republicans don't want to deal with the Epstein file. So they have shut down all of oversight committee hearings, right? So we've got an indictment for SPLC. I have still yet to see an indictment on any Epstein defendant. Not a one, but okay. And we want to talk about what happened in Charlottesville, and we are so upset about Charlottesville. All of a sudden, I would be interested to know which one of you had something to say about Charlottesville when it happened, because I don't think that y'all were saying those same things. In fact, our fearless leader at the time said that there were pretty fine people on both sides. You were okay with the tiki torches. You were okay with it. But I digress. I'm going to move on to Texas in my last 24 seconds. In your testimony before the Texas House of Representatives, you read aloud a series of messages between you and other whistleblowers, basically explaining the corruption happening directed by Attorney General Ken Paxton. On page 82, lines 5 through 11, you list all the corruption that Ken Paxton directed you and others to carry out, to quote, demanding that we investigate facially bogus charges, refusing to take our advice that there is no prosecutable offense, demanding that we hire outside counsel, and authorizing an improper fishing expedition. Is that correct?
The time of the gentleman has
Congresswoman.
expired. The gentleman can respond if you want.
My testimony from that proceeding stands for itself.
Yeah.
So
You're now recognized
just
as
to
the-
clarify,
The
Ms.
gentleman's time has expired.
I understand.
Our next person is going to give you time, Dr. King, to respond to this.
Very briefly, Congresswoman, I am a bit emotional. I'm going to watch what I say. But it seems as though you have suggested that I am a bastard to the King family legacy. I am legitimately the daughter of Reverend Alfred Daniel Williams King and Dr. Naomi Ruth Barber King. We are a family who loves God, and I love you. God bless you.
Ms. King, let the record reflect that the gentlelady from Texas left the room. Thank you for responding to that.
What made this hearing memorable was not simply the disagreement over the Southern Poverty Law Center. The most significant moment came from a broader debate about representation, political identity, and who has the authority to speak about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Representative Jasmine Crockett used her time to argue that the hearing itself reflected a larger political problem. Her criticism was directed not only at the hearing's subject matter, but also at the makeup of the witnesses and lawmakers involved in the discussion. A central part of her argument focused on diversity and political representation. Crockett suggested that many communities of color do not feel welcomed by the Republican Party, and argued that Republicans were highlighting Dr. Alveda King because of her family connection to Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. She contrasted Dr. King's appearance with the absence of other members of the King family, specifically mentioning Martin Luther King III and Dr. Bernice King. From Crockett's perspective, that distinction mattered because she believed those family members might offer a different interpretation of Dr. King's legacy and teachings. The broader argument was about credibility and representation. Who gets to speak for a historical figure? Who gets to define that figure's legacy? And how should that legacy be applied to modern political debates? These questions arise frequently whenever major historical figures become part of contemporary political discussions. Throughout American politics, leaders from both parties often invoke the words and ideas of figures such as Martin Luther King Jr., Abraham Lincoln, and others. Disagreements often emerge not over whether those individuals were important, but over how their beliefs should be interpreted today. Crockett's remarks reflected that larger debate. She argued that some of the comments and viewpoints discussed during the hearing were inconsistent with King's teachings on race and equality. To support that position, she cited several statements from Dr. King's speeches and writings regarding racism. Her goal appeared to be demonstrating that King's views on racial justice were broader and more direct than some contemporary political interpretations suggest. The hearing then shifted toward discussion of public statements made by political commentators and activists. Crockett cited examples that she characterized as racial or religious stereotyping. Her argument was that such statements illustrate why organizations that monitor extremism and hate groups continue to receive attention and support from many Americans. Supporters of Crockett's position would likely argue that examining rhetoric is an important part of understanding political movements and their impact. They may contend that words influence public attitudes and that controversial statements deserve scrutiny regardless of who makes them. Critics of her position, however, might argue that political disagreements are too often labeled as evidence of hatred or extremism. They may view some of the examples she cited as political opinions rather than proof of discriminatory intent. This disagreement reflects a larger national debate over how terms such as racism, extremism, and hate should be defined and applied. Those debates have become increasingly prominent in public discourse over the past decade. The hearing also briefly moved into unrelated political issues, including references to the Epstein investigation and controversies in Texas politics. These remarks reflected Crockett's broader criticism of congressional priorities. Her argument was that lawmakers were focusing attention on the Southern Poverty Law Center, while failing to devote sufficient attention to other issues she viewed as more urgent. Whether viewers agree with that criticism or not, it demonstrated how congressional hearings often become platforms for larger political messages. The most consequential moment, however, came after Crockett had left the room. Representative Nancy Mace then invited Dr. Alveda King to respond. What followed changed the tone of the hearing entirely. Up until that point, the exchange had largely been political. The discussion involved ideology, race, party politics, and public policy. Dr. King's response was personal. Rather than responding with a political attack, she addressed what she believed was an implication about her identity and legitimacy within the King family. Her statement was emotional and direct. She affirmed her family connection and spoke about her parents, her faith, and her love for others. That response resonated because it shifted the conversation away from politics and toward personal experience. Viewers may disagree strongly about the political arguments made during the hearing. They may disagree about the Southern Poverty Law Center. They may disagree about race, political parties, or the interpretation of Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy. But Dr. King's response introduced a different dimension. It focused on dignity, family, and personal identity. That is often why emotional moments stand out in congressional hearings. Political arguments can become repetitive. Personal testimony often feels more human and memorable. The exchange also illustrates a challenge that frequently arises when historical legacies intersect with modern politics. Public figures such as Martin Luther King Jr. are widely admired across the political spectrum. Yet different groups often emphasize different aspects of their beliefs and teachings. As a result, disagreements over legacy can become as intense as disagreements over current policy. The hearing ultimately revealed two competing perspectives. One side argued that certain political movements are inconsistent with King's vision for America. The other side argued that King's family and legacy cannot be reduced to a single political interpretation. Neither side persuaded everyone. But the emotional conclusion ensured that the hearing would be remembered for more than its original topic. What began as a debate over the Southern Poverty Law Center evolved into a broader argument about race, political identity, historical legacy, and who gets to speak for one of the most influential figures in American history. And in the final moments, the political debate gave way to something more personal, a reminder that behind public controversies are real people whose identities, families, and experiences are often drawn into the center of national political battles.